The case commonly referred to as the Epstein Files did not begin with a dramatic document release or a courtroom spectacle. It began decades earlier with the gradual rise of a man who built influence not through elected office or public achievement, but through proximity to wealth, power, and elite social networks. Understanding the later legal battles, sealed court documents, and public outrage requires first understanding how Jeffrey Epstein positioned himself within some of the most powerful circles in the world. Jeffrey Epstein was born in 1953 in Brooklyn, New York. His upbringing did not signal the global notoriety that would follow. He came from a modest family and attended college but did not complete a degree. Despite lacking formal credentials in finance or economics, he displayed a remarkable ability to present himself as sophisticated, intelligent, and financially astute. In the mid-1970s, Epstein worked briefly as a teacher at the Dalton School, a prestigious private school in Manhattan. His hiring reportedly occurred despite the absence of a completed degree. This early access to elite environments appears to have been pivotal. Dalton served families connected to finance, politics, and corporate leadership. It provided Epstein exposure to circles far removed from his background. By the late 1970s, Epstein transitioned into finance, joining Bear Stearns, an investment bank known for its aggressive trading culture. His time there was relatively short, yet it established his reputation as someone comfortable navigating high-level financial environments. After leaving Bear Stearns, he began presenting himself as a private financial manager for ultra-wealthy clients. However, the exact mechanics of his financial empire remained opaque. Unlike publicly traded firms, his operations lacked transparency, audited disclosures, or clear institutional structure. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, Epstein accumulated substantial wealth. He acquired multiple high-profile properties, including a mansion in Manhattan, a waterfront estate in Palm Beach, a ranch in New Mexico, and a private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands. These properties were not only residences, they became symbols of status and exclusivity. They also later became central to criminal allegations. Epstein cultivated relationships strategically. He attended events with business magnates, politicians, academics, scientists, and celebrities. Publicly available photographs and flight records later demonstrated that many influential individuals interacted with him. It is important to distinguish between social association and criminal participation. However, the breadth of Epstein's network contributed to the perception that he was deeply embedded in elite society. During this period, Epstein also engaged in philanthropy. He donated to universities, research initiatives, and scientific projects. Several prominent academic institutions accepted funding connected to him. But at the time, philanthropy enhanced his credibility. The first major criminal allegations surfaced in the early 2000s. In 2005, a parent in Palm Beach, Florida, contacted local authorities alleging that Epstein had paid her teenage daughter for a massage that became sexual. Police investigations uncovered statements from multiple young women who described similar experiences. According to sworn testimony, girls, some under 18 years of age, were recruited with promises of money for massages at Epstein's residence. Investigators reported a pattern: initial contact through recruiters, promises of payment, escalating sexual conduct, and incentives to bring in additional girls. The allegations suggested a system rather than isolated misconduct. Police in Palm Beach recommended significant charges. However, the case took an unexpected turn. In 2008, Epstein reached a controversial plea agreement with federal prosecutors in Florida. Instead of facing federal sex trafficking charges, he pled guilty in state court to two lesser offenses: soliciting prostitution and soliciting prostitution from a minor. He was sentenced to 18 months in county jail,
but was granted extensive work release privileges, allowing him to leave the facility during the day for business activities. The agreement also included a non-prosecution provision that granted immunity to potential co-conspirators. Years later, critics argued that this clause significantly limited accountability. Additionally, victims were not informed of the agreement before it was finalized, raising legal concerns under the Crime Victims' Rights Act. After serving his sentence, Epstein registered as a sex offender and returned to his residences. Despite his conviction, he continued moving within influential circles. Some individuals distanced themselves, but others maintained contact. The degree to which his past was known or discussed publicly varied. The case might have faded from national attention if not for investigative journalism. In 2018, reporting by the Miami Herald brought renewed scrutiny to the 2008 plea deal. Journalists interviewed victims, reviewed court filings, and raised questions about prosecutorial decisions. Public reaction intensified. Federal authorities in New York began examining new evidence. In July 2019, Epstein was arrested in New Jersey and charged in the Southern District of New York with sex trafficking of minors and conspiracy to commit sex trafficking. He pled not guilty. While awaiting trial, Epstein was held at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan. On August 10, 2019, he was found unresponsive in his cell and later pronounced dead. The New York City medical examiner ruled his death a suicide by hanging. Subsequent federal investigations identified serious procedural failures within the jail, but found no evidence of a coordinated criminal conspiracy. Epstein's death ended the possibility of a criminal trial against him. However, it did not end legal proceedings. Civil lawsuits continued. Criminal investigations into associates persisted. Court documents began to surface in greater volume. Over time, these documents collectively became labeled in public discourse as the Epstein Files. Yet the term itself can be misleading. There is no single master archive. Instead, there exists a broad collection of court records, deposition transcripts, plea agreements, investigative reports, and civil filings. These materials provide insight into the scope of allegations, institutional decisions, and the broader network surrounding Epstein. The first phase of the story, therefore, is not about mysterious hidden documents. It is about how influence, wealth, and social positioning allowed one individual to operate for years before facing substantial consequences. It is about the intersection of power and vulnerability. And it sets the foundation for understanding what the so-called files would later reveal. When people refer to the Epstein Files, they often imagine a single hidden archive containing explosive revelations. In reality, the term describes a wide collection of court documents, sworn depositions, flight logs, investigative records, plea agreements, and civil filings that emerged across multiple legal proceedings over many years. These materials did not appear all at once. They surfaced gradually through lawsuits, criminal indictments, media petitions, and judicial rulings on sealed records. To understand the significance of these documents, it is necessary to examine the allegations in detail. Federal prosecutors in New York charged Epstein in 2019 with sex trafficking of minors and conspiracy to commit sex trafficking. The indictment alleged that from at least 2002 to 2005, Epstein operated a system in which underage girls were recruited to his properties in Manhattan and Palm Beach for sexual exploitation. Prosecutors described a structured pattern. Girls were paid hundreds of dollars for massages that became sexual in nature, and some were encouraged to recruit others in exchange for additional payments. Under federal law, sex trafficking of a minor does not require proof of force or coercion. The age of the victim alone establishes criminal liability. This legal framework shaped the prosecution's strategy. Investigators gathered testimony from multiple alleged victims who described similar recruitment methods and payment structures. Many of the details later circulated publicly originated in civil litigation rather than criminal trials. Because Epstein died before his 2019 trial began, the courtroom examination of evidence never occurred in a criminal setting. Instead, much of the record developed through defamation lawsuits and civil claims filed by victims. One major source of documentation was a defamation lawsuit filed by Virginia Giuffre against Ghislaine Maxwell in 2015. Giuffre alleged that Maxwell helped recruit and groom her as a minor for Epstein. During the case, both sides conducted extensive discovery, which included depositions under oath, witness statements, and document exchanges. Portions of these materials were initially sealed to protect privacy and ongoing investigations. Over time, media